Thanks for joining us on this episode on how to Gyotaku a fish. Veronica and I were invited to a workshop hosted by the Bay Area Sport Fishers Club held at the San Jose Bass Pro Shops. We filmed the whole event, including how to get started, some one-on-one commentary, and how to add detail by painting the fish's eyes. This lesson is taught by Bruce Koike. Bruce has been practicing Gyotaku since 1985 and has printed over 150 species of aquatic animals, including fish, seaweed, crab, clams, octopus, and squid. He does these workshops to teach others how to print their own fish. His website will be linked below in case you're interested in joining one of these classes. With that said, let's all learn together. Take it away, Bruce.
My name is Bruce Koike. I'm from Newport, Oregon. Thank you for your interest in learning about fish printing, which is a Japanese art form called Gyotaku. Gyotaku literally translates to fish rubbing, and I think that'll be pretty plainly evident as you see this demonstration and how you're going to do the printing. Ready? Okay. So one of the important first steps is to have your fish dried. You're basically removing standing water. You don't want your fish to be cold, because what happens with your cold glass of beer?
Condensates.
It gets wet on the outside. And what are we trying to do with paper towels? Remove standing water, okay? So you don't want a real cold fish. So in drying the fish, you're going to leave the paper towel stationary and run your hand over. This is good practice. Start getting in touch with how that fish feels underneath the paper with your fingertips. If you find places where there's water, which is like around the eyes or the nares, just move the paper a little bit and retouch that area. Because they're pits. The nares and the lateral line are pits, and water seeks the lowest point. So there's water in there. Okay. You can lift the gill covering, slip in a little paper towel, pull and tap. When you start, don't just dive your brush completely into that pile of paint, but do like that so you're still leaving quite a bit of unpainted brush there. Can get by with just the tip. I brought dark colors which will show up readily, and so think minimal as you paint the fish. These are acrylic paints. They dry fairly quickly. What's nice in here is there's not a lot of air movement, and so your paints aren't going to dry near as fast as if you were in a breezy area. Okay? One person share an observation.
You're going around the eyes.
Don't paint on the eyes. If you happen to get paint, just take your finger a couple times. You can remove it. This is going to allow a really nice landmark to put your eyes in.
You're like stippling.
You're not stroking. If you stroke, you'll see stroke marks. And some fish have stripes, but not necessarily textured. Another observation.
There's certain areas that you're skipping, kind of like the eye, but you're skipping like the pectoral fin also.
Yeah. So what you want to do with the pectoral fin is to leave a halo around it. So if you can imagine, if you had blue, 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 and then you have this something that's a different texture, but it's the same color, it's hard to really spot it. So by leaving this little halo, it's going to be the color of your paper before you get back to the fin. Okay, so a little halo open area. How frequently would you say I go back and get some more paint?
Very.
Very? Very frequent?
What do you mean by that?
3 to 4 times.
And I don't necessarily go back to where the pile is. Again, think minimal. If you keep going back to the pile, you're just loading up that brush a lot. Okay, we'll pull this fin out, give it a stroke, and then with your pectoral fin, you do want to put paint on it. And the way that you can do that and maintain that halo is using the thin brush, going in, lifting it, and painting it. and then laying it back down in the open spot. You're only going to paint the upper half of the fish. Okay? You don't want to paint on the underside. Once you have the fish fully painted, then you're going to remove that sheet because you don't want that paint on your finished product. Okay? We're going to use these pieces of foam board to support your fins and enable us to open those fins up for people to enjoy seeing. And you don't necessarily have to stack these boards right on top of each other, but you could stack and then leave one offset, and that creates that ramp. Nice little angle that you could, that's beneficial in all this. And we're going to use pins. A lot of times people will use clay or other things to hold the fins in place. But I like pins. You don't necessarily have to go through the membrane, but just at the edge of the spine and open up. Okay, observation about the pins?
They're angled.
They're angled. Good. And that just allows your paper to get closer to the surface of the fish. Now for the tail fin, you'll use 2 pins.
Is there a reason?
Hold it on the distal end and then pull it apart. Don't pull apart very far or hard because you'll tear the fin, but just drive it into the newspaper. And if there's areas that you find that did not have paint, and this was pretty good, then you can paint that area and set it aside. One more fin to pin up. And these foam core pieces are, various shape. Just try to put together the combination that fits best for the fish that you have. Okay, and then we have oddball shaped pieces. These shaped pieces you're going to place in the mouth of the fish. So mouth opens up this way. You don't have to put the board at the top end, but put it on the bottom half where you're not going to, it won't interfere with the paper. Okay, so we'll open it a little bit, put it right on the table, and that's going to hold that open, hopefully. Okay. The paper, which is rice paper, has a smooth side and a textured side. Doesn't matter which side you use. Try both sides, see which one you like best. And when we do the rubbing, it's a very light touch. If you see the color of your fingernails change because you're pressing, it turns pink, you're pressing too hard. So it's a very light touch. So light that just the weight of the paper, do you see some paint right here? Yeah. Just from the weight of the paper. So that's not very much pressure at all. Okay. So we're going to start at the head. We want to establish upper and lower jaws and then move back. As you're working with your fish, notice the shape. And we want to capture the shape of the fish. Okay. So I'm going to just open my hand. That'll hold the paper in place more. So once we get close enough to where our pins are, going to use your fingers and go down around the fish and place them at the base of the spines or the fins. Basically, these fingers are going to hold those fins in place so you can remove the pins If you remove the pins without doing that, the fins will lay down, right? So we're going to hold, pin down the spines and then remove the pins. So there's one, there's two, and then do the rubbing. Okay. Okay. How many pins did we use in the tail? Two. So we're going to use 2 fingers, hold the edge of the fin, and remove the pins. And then do the rubbing. Get to the anal fin. Move the pin. And we get to the pelvic fin, which is on the ventral side. I'm going to hook the fin with my hand, pull it down a little bit. My fingers basically become the boards, and then drop the paper down and do the rubbing.
So you're supporting it from underneath.
Right. So I do one final glance on kind of the perimeter of the fish, as well as see if there's any open spots that didn't get touched. I'm happy with it. I'll remove it. So you're going to grab the corners, you're going to lift towards the ceiling and pull back, but also rock it back and forth. Well, this one came off really easy. So you're doing this and pulling it off. Okay?
Nice. Beautiful.
Okay. So that's how we do it. Everyone will get a point to where we're done printing, and then I'll do an eye demonstration. Pick a fish, take it to your workstation. There should be paper towels. Start drying. When it's dry to your satisfaction, come get paint. I'm not going to answer, is this dry enough? Is this too much paint? That's all part of the learning process. After you're done with your first print, let's do a one-on-one and then do more.
And I think the fin came up really well.
Yeah. And good direction following. You see how that, if you had just that blue like right here, running all the way up to the blue of its
Right.
fin, how it would get
The
lost.
contrast is blue.
The contrast. Yep.
Cool.
What could be improved on this one?
Well, what would you like to improve in it?
I guess maybe closing the gap on the halo a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, narrowing it, and you're in control of where the paint goes. So there should be a pelvic fin in here.
It was really tiny and I couldn't get a
You're
picture.
okay. Yeah. So once you have it painted, you're going to come in here, hook that spine, rotate your hand underneath, basically become foam board.
Oh, you showed us that.
That's
Okay.
Straight.
And grab that, and you're going to rotate your wrist.
Press that.
And lay the paper back down and then rub with your other hand. We'll start easy. We'll do the standard fish. So your basic components are the pupil, which will always be black, and in this case, round. If you're having that fish look somewhere, then the shapes change up. And I like to rotate my paper and just keep kind of this motion. So I'm not changing angles. So it's a very forgiving stage. Because if you screw up and make it too big, or you have a bulge on the black pupil, you just let it dry and you paint over it with white. And then we go ahead and fill that up and rotate it a little bit more to get the roundness. The next part's the iris. So that's the color on your driver's license, is the iris. That can be any color. Just realizing your black pupil, if you use dark blue, the contrast isn't necessarily there to highlight that. So paint it the way the fish is, paint it any color. For me, let's use up the paint that's on people's palettes. Okay, so look around at what people have. When you're painting the iris, you want to leave just the smallest area between the pupil and your iris, like 1/64th, just a tiny piece. So you can start a little ways away and paint in towards that. So I'm rolling the brush to get excess paint off. So you don't do the eye painting when you're in a bad mood or after you've had multiple cups of coffee, caffeinated coffee. When I'm in, if you want to say production mode, I will have stockpiled eyeless fish prints and then set aside an evening where I'll start off by doing just pupils and just do pupils for that evening and then come in and do irises the next night. But because you spread it out, it gives the opportunity for the paint to dry, whereas we don't have that luxury. So I'm just going to blast through.
Bruce, are you leaving a slight gap between the pupil and iris?
Yes. Yeah. Tiny, tiny gap. It's, 1/32nd or 1/64th. Is tiny. So the outer perimeter of the iris you'll leave a wider margin between the outer perimeter and the inside of the eye socket. And you'll see in a little bit. Now this is the simplest eye. You can embellish it to any degree. And, using fish books, fish ID books, internet, you can just see the variety of eyes that are had. Now, one of the things with this particular eye is I chose, so I'm using just the brown, but if you look at it, the iris, you see white in there. So I'm choosing not to put down a solid layer of brown, okay? So it adds a second color just from that, okay? Now, look at your neighbor, look at your neighbor's eye. Take your cap off, please. Wow. Okay, what do you see? I see it really well on you. You see something? A little glare, a little reflection, okay? So we want to put that on the fish. Sparkle. And because, you two can look a long time, but be inappropriate for a lot of other people, right? Keep looking. Okay, back over here. So we want to put that little white reflection on the pupil, and it can be a dot. It can be a kidney bean shape where the ends are symmetrical. It can be a comma or an apostrophe, so it's asymmetrical. It could be a pie wedge with the tip of the pie, pointed towards the center of the eye, so the pupil. A key point is to leave just a really thin black strip between the white reflection and the perimeter of the pupil. Okay, so wash your paintbrush before you do that. So just kind of in your mind's eye, remember what that looks like.
It's like a flat eye.
Whoa.
So that's the little reflection spot. Okay.
So this is a Gyotaku set up by our Vice President, Jessica. We had this specialist come in who does this for a living and gave us a very private session and basically taught us from start to finish on how to do a print and gave us lots of printing time, which was great. The Area Sport Fishers, we're a public or a social fishing club. We're all volunteers as far as board goes. We take everyone who wants to learn about fishing and try to educate them and teach them how to do it. We hold charter trips. We do events out on surf fishing. Our website's www.bayareasportfishers.com. You can find all our events there. We have an educational page. Anything you want to learn about fishing, we have there. So
Awesome. It was a good event. Thank you so much. We had a great time. I did learn quite a bit, even if I've done this before, and that's actually the reason I'm here is Steve saw that I've been trying to learn how to do Gyotakus, and he sent me a message.
Man. You're a pro.
Oh yeah, thanks. Stop. But yeah, really, I did learn a lot from Bruce and what he was showing. That cardstock's gonna be a game changer, but there's a few other things that I can't even put into words that I was able to pick up and learn, especially when it comes to detailing those eyes. So that was really awesome. So thank you for
glad it was useful for you.
inviting me. Yeah, I'm glad I came. But guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this and you found it useful. If you guys want to print your own fish, hope this video helped you. And I'm going to leave links below. Bruce is going to give me his information on how to contact him, how to purchase some of his prints, and they will be in the description below. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Big shout out to Bruce. Thank you.